Hello Tarot friends, and welcome to this top 15 decks I recommend for different types of tarot and oracle readings. So if you're experimenting with different types of readings and you're wondering which deck is best for your reading topic, this video offers deck recommendations based on my 45 years experience of reading tarot and oracles. I'll recommend decks for different reading topics and let you know why I recommend that deck for that type of reading so you can judge for yourself. Every deck is from my personal collection. They're all decks that I use, no paid promotions. So this video is inspired by a tarot YouTuber called Nova Mundi Tarot. It's a VR or video reply to her hashtag Editors Pick Decks. Nova created a list of 15 prompts or topics for different types of readings, and she created a community playlist for professional tarot readers to recommend their top pick for each type of reading. There's a link to her original video in the description, and in the description, you will also find her original list of 15 prompts or topics for tarot and oracle readings. I'm Anastasia, and welcome to Anastasia Tarot and Vedic Astrology, where we sail the cosmic currents searching for the treasure of divine wisdom, one tarot card at a time. So let's get into the top 15 tarot and oracle decks for 15 different reading topics. Okay, so the first topic from the list is inner child work, a deck you recommend for inner child readings. And I recommend Morgan Greer Tarot in a Tin. So this is the US Games pocket-sized tarot in a tin. It also does come in a full-sized version. So why do I like this for inner child reading? And it's the colors. It just uses these beautiful, rich, saturated colors. And I don't know about your inner child, but my inner child just loves color. And the other thing that I find this deck is appealing for inner child work is all the illustrations have a somewhat fairy tale type of quality. I feel like I might see these illustrations in a children's fairy tale book. Like especially that one, it just really seems like a fairy tale. So this Morgan Greer Tarot in a Tin is my top pick for inner child. Next up is top pick for shadow work tarot readings. Now, I do a lot of shadow work, so I couldn't pick one. I actually have 3 here. And in fact, my next video that I've got in the pipeline is a whole video dedicated to shadow work and the types of decks that I use for shadow work. So 2 of these are from Patrick Valenza, and they are the Triunfi della Luna. And I like this deck so much. There's the Illustrated Pips edition, and then there's also the Tarocchi or Tarot de Marseille style. And I have both. And I really prefer the Marseille style. However, I got the Illustrated Pips edition because it has this expansion pack of like 10 or 11 extra trump cards, extra Triunfi cards. So I ended up getting the Illustrated Pips because I wanted the expansion pack with these extra cards. And I just love this deck for shadow work. It's a really deep deck. And let's have a quick look at this is the Marseille or Tarocchi type. which doesn't illustrate the pips. And I do prefer this one. And this deck, oh my goodness, it really just speaks to my shadow side. This is one of my favorite cards. It references the biblical story of Samson and Delilah, which is really quite a dark story if you get into it. And I love the way this deck is evocative of the historic decks that I love, but definitely very dark. And it does have this demonic imagery, which may not be everyone's cup of tea, but I find it's done with such humor and compassion that it's just a wonderful deck. My other deck that I really love for shadow work is this Mystical Tarot by Lo Scarabeo. And you can see the box is all beat up. I've had it for a long time. And this deck gives off strong Solabusca vibes. Even though it's Rider-Waite Smith based, there's something about this deck that really vibes like Solabusca. And for those of you who are familiar, Solabusca is an extremely dark deck. And it's a historic deck from the 1400s. So I use these decks differently. I tend to use the Triunfi della Luna decks for really emotional shadow work, kind of plumbing the depths of the emotions, as it were. And I use this Mystical Tarot. I use this one for weird readings, when I'm reading on like the UFO sightings that they were having last December, or a true crime case or a missing persons case. So I enjoy using Mystical Tarot for more for these sorts of just strange readings, but I am going to group that in with shadow work. All right, so these are my top 3 decks for shadow work with the Tarot. Okay, so next up is your favorite deck for deity or spirit guides, a deck for devotional practice. Now, I am a Vedic astrologer, and Ganesha, Ganpati, is the patron saint or patron deity of astrologers. So he's my favorite, I have to say. He's also the obstacle breaker. I have a little statue of him right here. So he's helping us with the video, and this god that helps us break obstacles. And so comes with a really, nice guidebook, not too long, not too short. And I just love the artwork. It's these are all different aspects of Ganesha. And this is, there are like 108 different aspects of Ganesha, 108 being a mystical number in Hinduism and also Buddhism. Now, this deck is not 108, but they're all different aspects of Lord Ganesha, and I find this oracle gives just really uplifting messages that will help you work through your obstacles. So this is my favorite deck for deity work or working with a god form, and that is Whispers of Lord Ganesha. So the next topic on this list is ancestor work, a deck you'd suggest for connecting with ancestral wisdom. Now, I am Greek and Russian heritage, so I just really feel this wonderful resonance with Tarot of the Golden Wheel, which is based on Russian and Slavic folklore. And it's, I believe it's a US Games. It's, reasonably priced, mass market. And it's a beautiful hand-painted deck. And it really resonates for me. The images are very much from, not folklore per se, but they're old-timey kinds of images that evoke the days of yore, as it were. And this deck gives great readings, and it gives really good, no-nonsense readings, and yet the artwork is just so beautiful and so evocative of this Russian and Eastern European Slavic culture. And I've been looking for a Greek-themed tarot deck because I'm Greek and Russian, but really mostly Greek. I've never found a Greek-themed tarot that I like, but this is the Ellada LeNormand, which is made by Alexander Danilov, who is a Russian artist living in Italy. And this is a LeNormand deck that's based on the motifs and color scheme of ancient Greek pottery. And I just love this deck. It's a great deck. It gives good, solid readings. And I don't know if you can see on YouTube, out there in YouTube land, but all the names for the cards are written, the names are written both in Greek and in English. So I just really like that. We spoke Greek around my house as a child, and so it's just a nice reminder to see these card names in Greek and to see these motifs of ancient Greek pottery. So these are the two decks that for me just really resonate with my own ancestral heritage. So our next topic, number 5, is divination. Clear, direct, and accurate, the best deck for predictive readings and practical answers. This was hard to choose one. Most of my decks, I find, make good predictions. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in business anymore. However, this is one of my just, go-to decks, especially for reading for clients who are coming to me to get reliable predictions and reliable insights. So this is a nice, large, full-size deck, so it's really easy for people to see. The color scheme is quite nice, and it's, mass market deck. It's by Scarabeo. It's easily available, and it's just a nice rendition of the Rider-Waite Smith. There's a couple places where the line work gets sloppy, and I wish they'd cleaned it up. But this is just a really lovely rendition of Rider-Waite Smith. So Radiant Wise Spirit Tarot by Scarabeo. So topic or prompt number 6, as above. A deck that connects you to cosmic or spiritual realms or messages from the higher self. It speaks from a divine perspective. So for this one, I picked Sufi Tarot. And this is one of the few tarot decks that I actually use the guidebook. I know tarot really well after 46 years, so I find most of the guidebooks just annoy me. However, this particular deck and guidebook package, she's really putting a lot of Sufi wisdom, Sufi quotes from Sufi writers, and there are, these little stories that illustrate various different spiritual principles. And this deck, let's have a look at some of the artwork. The artwork is quite lovely. It's a huge deck. It's a little bit hard for me to work with my hands, but the artwork is lovely. And I find every one of these stories that are included in the guidebook, I find them to be quite uplifting. It's always encouraging you to take a higher perspective, take a spiritual perspective. So I really appreciate that in this deck and the guidebook that goes with it. So this is my top recommendation, Sufi Tarot, for a deck that speaks from the divine perspective. All right, so number 7, we're about halfway through. So below, that's kind of cute. She has as above and so below. So below, a deck you recommend for grounded real-world readings, everyday emotions, human experience, and earthly wisdom with clarity and depth. Now, I wasn't sure if I would like Tattoo Tarot because, sometimes I find, theme decks can be kind of gimmicky. And so I was, somewhat prepared to hate this deck and end up giving it away. But I've kept it. It gives great readings. And as you can see with this kind of, with the tattoo art imagery, it's definitely a very grounded, down-to-earth kind of a deck. Reminds me of my misspent youth, but moving on from that. So this deck just gives really great, no-nonsense readings. And love the Queen of Swords. All right, so that's my top pick for So Below. Number 8, a hug deck. A deck that offers emotional support and comfort, gentle, compassionate, and soothing, like a warm hug if you're going through a tough time. And for this one, it's gotta be Mucha Tarot by Lo Scarabeo. This deck is just very comforting. It is built on the Rider-Waite Smith system, but it's using the artwork of Alphonse Mucha, who's, pretty much defined Art Nouveau style of art. And it's just a lovely, comforting deck, and especially for heartbreak, or for people who are going through, difficulties in their romantic lives. Oh, look at that. The Three of Swords showed up just as I was mentioning heartbreak and romantic difficulties. So I do tend to reach for this deck if I'm, reading for someone who's, going through some relationship difficulties, and also if I just want a kind of gentle, pretty deck that, even if it's delivering some bad or painful news, it's going to do it in a really aesthetically pleasing way, which somehow just makes it all better. So for a deck that's like a hug, number 8 on our list, Tarot Mucha from Lo Scarabeo. Number 9 on our list, a feel-good deck, a deck that uplifts, encourages, and energizes. And it was hard for me to pick just one, so I've got 2 here. One is Fyodor Pavlov, and this is the US Games mass market version. It is available. It's kind of expensive, not very budget friendly, but it is mass market. And then the other one is Light Seer's Tarot, very, very well-known deck, and again, widely available. And so why do I like Fyodor Pavlov? That to me, it's a feel-good, uplifting deck. And he's got all this gender bending stuff in here, which I quite enjoy. But it's, even the Knight of Coins, is in a wheelchair. So this deck is very inclusive, without doing it in a tedious way that's like throwing it in your face. It just really feels like, this is a deck for, those of us who are different and didn't fit in with everything. And it's all good. It's all okay. You can be different in this deck. You don't have to look like everyone else or be like everyone else. You can just be yourself with this deck. So that is Fyodor Pavlov deck. And again, this deck gives great readings. It's I found it to be really accurate, and it just gives good readings. And Light Seers, again, super famous deck. People are very familiar with this deck. I love this deck. And I don't like most modern decks. Those of you who know me, I am a fan of historic decks, which I'm not doing many historic decks in this video because it is concentrating on mass market, and easily available decks since it's recommendations. However, this deck I find to be very uplifting. It gives, practical, accurate readings, but I do find that it has an uplifting vibe to it. And I like the contemporary imagery. So I do find this deck to be, a feel-good deck. So those are my two feel-good decks: Fyodor Pavlov by US Games and the Light Seers Tarot by Chris Ann. So number 10 on our list, most versatile. A deck you recommend for handling any type of reading: love, career, shadow work, daily draws, and everything in between. Reliable, flexible, and reader-friendly. This is the all-arounder that adapts to every situation. So hands down, Pam's Vintage Tarot. Now this one isn't mass market. It is from, I think it's from makeplayingcards.com. It is an indie deck, but it's pretty easy to get your hands on it. Not super budget friendly, but it's easy to get. It's available. I have 2 copies of it. Just because it's kind of a go-to deck. So I love it. It's a travel size deck, and it's, just a classic Rider-Waite Smith, but it's borderless, which especially on this tiny little size, you can see the illustrations, and I love the vintage feel to it. And so this is, if I'm traveling and I just need a small deck that I can throw in my bag and know that I can handle any kind of reading that I need to do, this is kind of it. This will handle pretty much anything, and it's small, portable, and it has this kind of nice vintage vibe. Number 11 on the list, most inspiring. A deck that inspires creativity, intuitive flow, artistic inspiration, and divine Deco. That's absolutely it. I've done a full review and flip through of this deck because this is a dance-themed deck, and as a retired dancer, this is the most inspiring deck. I love it. Gives great readings. It gives really nice, accurate readings. The artwork is very much inspired by the ballet russe from the 1900s, 1920s. And the title is referencing, Art Deco, but it just really makes me think of ballet russe. The color scheme I find uplifting and inspiring. It's not a bright, in-your-face, jarring color scheme. It is kind of subtle, but there's enough in this color scheme to really spark my creativity. And of course, the dance imagery just really speaks to me. And some of this elaborate design, the creator of this deck is Albanian, I believe, Gerta Oparaku Egi. I hope I'm not killing her name, but So it's taking some of these Eastern European folk art motifs also. And yeah, this deck is just very creatively inspiring. So this is my #1 deck recommended for creative inspiration. Number 12 on our list, we're coming down the home stretch. Best for beginners. Now, I already have a video which is top 5 recommended decks for beginners. This is a new YouTube channel, and that was literally the first video that I made to launch my channel, was the top 5 decks for beginners. So for this video, I'm recommending this, Rider-Waite Smith Centennial Edition in a tin. This is my just all around, I always recommend this one to my tarot students, a classic Rider-Waite Smith. It's using the original Pamela Coleman Smith artwork, and it's just done the Centennial Edition. They did it in this nice vintage color scheme, and it's budget friendly, and it comes in a tin, and y'all know I love my decks in a tin. So this one is Tarot di Maria Celia by Leonard Jim Narciso. Mass market, US Games, I believe it's still available. This one was not in my top 5 decks for beginners video, but I pulled it out for this one because I wanted to give a Marseille style option for beginners who are getting into Marseille. And as you can see, this is a beautiful, beautiful color palette that he's using. And it's got this nice watercolors. So it's a really classic Marseille deck. It's using all the classic Marseille motifs and symbols, but it's just rendered so nicely and so artistically. And I like these colors a lot. And again, it's budget friendly. It comes in a tin. So this is a nice Marseille for beginners, and it wasn't included in my top 5 recommended decks for beginners, but I am including it here because, man, this is just a great deck. All right, so those are, for this video, recommended decks for beginners. Rider-Waite Smith Centennial in a tin from US Games for Rider-Waite Smith beginners, and then for Marseille beginners, Tarot di Maria Celia, also from US Games and also in a tin. Okay, number 13, lucky 13, best deck for professionals. So this is Ciro Marchetti, Legacy of the Divine. And I've cut down this deck. I've literally used this deck to the point that it was becoming ragged. And so I trimmed it, and I like smaller decks. So this is a trimmed version, but the full-size version basically just has black borders. So it's, not a whole lot different. And the full-size version does have the card names. I know this deck so well, I do not need the card names. This deck is built on the Rider-Waite Smith platform, but it just adds something a little bit different. I love Ciro Marchetti's artwork. I love the color symbolism. Each element has, a different color. So I find the color symbolism as a professional reader, this deck is in some ways more accessible even than Rider-Waite Smith. When I'm reading for clients, the pentacles are all green. So this deck is just my all-time favorite professional deck. And I have this one, which I use a lot and I cut down, and then I have a full-size one. And, depending I'll read either one, but I use this deck so much I have 2 copies of it. So this is my recommended deck for professional readers, just as being very client friendly and very accessible to a wide range of clients, whoever you're reading for. Number 14, Witchy Vibes. So this is a cute little mini deck. It's the Everyday Witch Tarot. Again, it's mass market. It's easily available. I was kind of ambiguous about buying this deck. I didn't think I would use it that much. So when I saw this little mini version go on sale, and I mean, it's like $12 regularly, and then I think I even got it on a discount from that, and you know, it's kind of a no-brainer, and it is just so damn cute. It's tiny. And it gives good readings. It actually reads much better than I thought it would read. And it's built on, you know, Rider-Waite Smith. So it's, you know, not that, there's nothing that surprising. And it's using this kind of Harry Potter witchy type of symbolism. So it's not particularly, you know, profound or groundbreaking or anything, but it does give good readings. So I was really pleasantly surprised by this Everyday Witch mini deck, and you know, really cute with the cat on the back. It has the cat and the broom and the black hat. So just a cute, lighthearted, witchy sort of deck. Everyday Witch mini. And finally, number 15. Astrology, a deck recommended for astrology lovers with zodiac archetypes, ideal for exploring birth charts, transits, and celestial guidance. So I adore this Starcodes Astro Oracle. I saw this on a tarot forum that I participate in, and I saw the images and messaged the person who posted them, you know, what is it? What is it? So this is, as far as I know, it's, you know, widely available, Starcodes Astro Oracle by Heather Roan Robbins, and it's published by Hay House. And it has the 12 signs of the zodiac, and then it gets into the planets. And I really, really quite like the planets illustrations. They're just wonderful. Especially Mercury, that's my Lugna Lord, and I really just love that Mercury illustration. And the North Node, or Rahu. And then it even has, for those of you who do this, you know, modern Western astrology, which I don't do, but it has Ceres and Neptune. It has the outer planets and even some of the Juno, some of Jupiter's moons and asteroids. And I don't use all of those because I'm a Vedic astrologer, but here's the South Node, which is Ketu, and just lovely, lovely motif there. And it also has not only the planets, but it also has, you know, these dignities. So retrograde, things like that, solar flares, debilitated, ascendant. And it has cards for each of the 12 houses. So this is just a beautiful deck. And it's lovely to work with as an astrologer. I very much appreciate it. I use it sometimes for prashna, where you pick an ascendant for an astrological reading that's, you know, divining a future event or reading on a certain event called prashna. This is my all-time recommendation for working with astrology and an oracle deck, that you can do astrologically based oracle readings, and you can also kind of use it as just some really lovely flashcards to learn astrology. Now, the other deck I'm recommending for astrology is Thoth. And I've had this deck so long, I no longer have the box. So Thoth has been around forever. It's a classic deck, not everyone's cup of tea, and I actually don't read with this deck very much, but it does have the astrological symbolism is listed on the cards, and Crowley and this system is very astrology based. And again, it's using Western Hellenistic type of astrology. So I don't use the astrology in this deck because I'm a Vedic astrologer and I'm using a whole different system of astrology. However, this deck, the tarot readers I know who are heavily into Western style astrology, they definitely resonate with the Thoth deck. And this is also just undeniably a beautiful deck that has withstood the test of time. It's been around for a long time. Okay, thank you so much for watching. That is your top 15 deck recommendations for 15 different reading topics. Thank you so much for watching, and please do like and subscribe. All hail the mighty algorithm. It helps make this content visible to other people who might enjoy it. Wishing you the blessings of good health, peace, prosperity, and wisdom, whatever deck you're using.